This is Inspiring Design, where unique innovators come together to share their knowledge, share their insight, and keep us up to date with the latest industry trends. And here's your host, Rushan Senanayake.
What's up, listeners? Welcome to a brand new episode of Inspiring Design Season 2. I'm your host, Rushan, and unlike every other episode that we've done in Season 2, today is actually a unique point of view. In fact, it's an international point of view. Season 2 has been all about the student's point of view, and today is really no exception to that. We're still design thinking our way through education, featuring design students from all over Australia in various subject areas, disciplines, and stages in their educational career. So to kick things off today, I have here with me a very special guest, one of my past students and now a good friend, Victor Nguyen. He's going to be talking about design from an international student's point of view, going through what his career has been so far. Victor is now 26. He was a transfer student from Vietnam. He has now graduated from his Master of Architecture in 2019. Congrats. Victor came to Australia in 2011 and has been living here for more than 8 years, taking 6 years to complete his architecture studies. So that's a pretty impressive feat, and his journey as an international student has been a unique one. So let's get into it and find out how design education has been through the eyes of an international student. Welcome to the show, Victor.
Thank you, Rishan.
Can you start off with a little bit of background on yourself, your story?
Okay, so I came here in 2011, and I spent the first nearly 2 years to studying English. And back in the time, I never thought I would do something relating to architecture or any sort of drawings, because when I was in high school, that my worst subject was like drawing, something relating drawing.
Yeah.
So no experience, no background study. So, but I came to architectures. I think it's just like, I can say it's like my destiny to do this, and
that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Was there a calling, or how did you know? Was it just a gut feeling?
Honestly, like at the beginning, well, the reason was when I do my English study at Kelvin Grove, one of my friends asked me to do architecture with him because he said that his family was, so his uncle family has a business about construction and design here. So that would be a good chance for us if we complete study and then we know someone in the industry, you know?
Yeah.
So then, yeah, I spent like 1 week to think about that. Yeah. And then, and also back in the time where I was like in the middle of the intersection, I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do when I finish my English. So yeah.
So essentially, you decided to study archi after you came to Australia.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Prior to that, in Vietnam, did you have any inclinations, or did you even think about it?
Not at all, because a bit special. I don't know here, but in my country, Vietnam, if we want to study architecture, we have to spend like, I know a lot of my friends in high school, they spend hours outside class during the drawing class.
Right.
So they actually went to the center where they teach you how to draw the portrait, how to draw the the head portrait, and everything about drawings. They learn it because we actually have to do the tests, the national tests, to get into the architecture school.
Right.
So because I'm not a fan of drawing, so
Okay.
I can't do it. That's the thing, I can't do it. And I never thought that I'll have the ability to do that. So architecture in like saying doing architecture in my country was impossible to me. To get into the school was the first challenge.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can pass that.
Well, the thing is, I've seen your drawings, and I think I've said this to you many times. You have an incredible ability to draw, but for some reason you believe that you can't draw. But either way, you're here now with actually having graduated from your masters and are now headed towards work experience. So what's the next step now? Are you looking for work at the moment?
Yes, I'm still looking for a job, but recently I got an offer from one of the consultant company. He's a good friend of my friend, so he not designing, he doing the tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a small firm, but I think there's a good opportunity to work with him, so I can learn more from him, and so as establishing more networking.
Yeah. That's awesome. You only graduated last month, so having an offer there already as an international student, I think that puts you ahead of pretty much the majority of even the local students. So well done, mate. Like that's pretty amazing feat.
Yeah, I think I was a bit lucky.
But we're here to talk about how, as an international student, your education in design was about. What do you think was your biggest challenges and obstacles as an international student?
Well, the biggest challenge, I would say, the language barrier.
Of course.
Even if now I can speak more fluent than the last 8 years ago.
What's your home language, by the way, the native tongue?
The Vietnamese, yeah.
Okay.
So when I first came here, that's why I spent like 2 years in Calvin Grove studying English.
Yeah.
Just to get to that level to be enough into architecture.
Yeah. So was that just English?
No, mainly English.
Okay.
There was something else like Australian study and some marketing.
Marketing, okay.
Yeah. It's just a part of the course. I don't know.
Right.
But mainly English.
So you had to go through a few extra years before you could even qualify to actually study art.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. And the ability to talk in front of people, like during oral presentation.
Yeah.
That's a big challenge because I still remember the first time I stood up in front of my class, and
in first year?
No, it was in when I was studying English.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I literally read from the paper. So we asked to do a oral presentation about a random topic, and I was so nervous. Yeah. That's same thing happened when I do my first design assignment in first year architecture.
And do you think that's because of
because of the language
barrier? Yeah.
I would say 70%. Yeah, because I'm afraid that the listener don't understand what I'm saying, and they don't get what I'm trying to show.
Yeah.
Things like that, and standing in front of people and looking into their eyes, and that they're looking at you.
Yeah.
It's nervous.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fear a lot of people have, actually, even if they can speak the language fluently, and you had to actually go through that fear of public speaking at the same time. On top of that, you had the language barrier. So how did you actually overcome that? Looking back from 2020 now, do you think you are at a comfortable place now?
A bit more, I would say.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I think the best advice for this how I overcome myself to so I'll be able to talk more naturally, more confidently. The first thing is you have to get yourself known to everyone.
Yeah.
So they know you and you know them.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned from the past 6 years.
Okay.
So the first 2 years, I was so nervous. I was literally don't talk anything during the tutorial class, because remember we having like a tutorial discussions and everyone say their opinion, and I trying to find a reason to get out when it's come to my turn.
Right.
Yeah. So it was nervous because I didn't talk to anyone at all.
Yeah.
They don't know me. I don't know them as well. So I'm nervous.
So what does a tutor do if you don't talk?
I don't know. They just ignore.
Okay.
They just, some of them just ignore.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember you being pretty talkative in second year when I had you for the first time.
That was the end of second year, so I probably.
Okay, cool.
I mean, the tutor is one of the main factors that contribute to I think my personally performance in the class.
Yeah.
Because the more friendly, closely, to your tutor, then you can share your opinion without any hesitation.
Yeah.
It's just like you. I mean, we can talk naturally. Just outside of the assignment, we can talk many things. So we are more open rather than different tutor.
Yeah.
So that's one.
So that actually made you feel comfortable enough to open up. Okay, cool.
That's one thing. And the other thing, like I say, you need to get you need to spend the first 2 weeks talk to your friends, your friends in class, so you know who they are.
Yeah.
So then you can, in your presentation, you can interact with them when you do the talk. Yeah.
That's actually, I think, valuable advice. Even if you're in the industry, that's something that if you're a professional going to pitch a certain design of a product or a space or a building or even an app or something, your client, getting to know them at that level, I think, rather than keeping them as strangers, that's actually really insightful advice, because that's about building relationships and you get to know them really well. So that's really cool. And how did you figure that out? Just by chance, or just felt right?
Just talking, because I was bad. My grades was bad. Not a fail, but just enough to pass.
Okay.
I figured out why.
And that has nothing to do with your design ability. It was the language barrier, isn't it?
No, at that time my language wasn't that bad anymore, because I can do an oral presentation as a okay level. But then I'm wondering why my design is not as good as other people, because back in the time where I look at other people work and I say, well, there's not much gap different, in their level of skill, level of design, comparing to mine. So
you did a lot of observation.
I come to talk with my tutor, and they say, you need to be, you need to communicate more with your peers and your tutor, so they can understand what you're trying to do. Because I was honestly, like in the first year, I thought the tutor can understand what we're doing, because they are tutor, right? They are designer, and apparently not. Sometimes they not. They they need to listen to what you've been doing. You need to tell them. So I think the communicate is very important key, even if when you in the industry, and you can't assume everyone understand what you're saying. You have to how to say, like you have to chat with them.
You do. You need to spend time.
Spend time.
I think that's another thing, a big takeaway, given that there's a lot of teachers listening to this in secondary and tertiary as well. That's actually really insightful to hear from a student's point of view, because the first couple of weeks, if you don't spend the time to know your student, how do you know what they're going to be like, their personalities, their strengths and weaknesses, where you can, as a tutor, you're a facilitator, you how do you know where to guide them? So that's great, and I actually think it should be ongoing rather than the first 2 weeks. But the first 2 weeks is actually where you put in more effort. I think that's the focus to build those relationships with your students.
Yep.
That's really good. And in terms of software, so obviously in design there's a lot of software applications that you need to learn. How did you go about learning those, and was there a lot of self-teaching involved?
Okay. This is a good story.
Okay.
Right? In the whole first year, we're not allowed to do any software at all.
Yeah.
It has to be hand draw.
Coming from a background of not thinking that you can actually draw,
yeah.
How did you tackle that?
That's the biggest challenge. Even if like comparing to what I did in my last year in bachelor, which is the heaviest subject. The first year was the most challenge that I had because I can't draw. I don't know how to draw perspective. I don't know how to draw things that can express your my idea. Yeah. And the other thing is I don't have any software at all. So that's why I'm saying my result was just enough to pass. Yeah, because I don't have any ability. So that's why when I finished my first year, I think I was a bit lucky. So,
okay.
So I went back to Vietnam. There was a friend of my father. He's an architect, but he's like old school. He do all hand draw, and he has a company. And in his company, he has one guy, and now that guy he become my tutor, my mentor. In Vietnam, and he taught me Revit.
Perfect.
He's self-learning guy, so he read from paper. Read from books. Even though his English was like nothing. But
was he talking in English to you, or
no in Vietnamese?
Right, so you had to actually then translate that back to English when in your mind.
That's right. When I still remember there one of the subject that's that was the visualization subject or something. We asked to do a Revit assignment. We have to rebuild that in Revit. I don't know what beam is. I don't know. I know the columns because column is common. We all know English, right? But I don't know beam. What is beam? Then I talked to my father.
This is back in second year? Or first year?
Was that second year? I think it's second year.
Okay.
Yeah. Something like that. First year, second year. I talked to my dad. I asked him, what's the beam? And he the thing is, I don't know what beam's called in my language. And he doesn't know what that is the beam. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there was a language barrier again because you can't actually translate that one from one language to the other.
He called that beam in Vietnamese.
Can I know what that is?
I think he called yam.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know what that breaks down into in Vietnamese?
No.
Okay.
I just know how literally back in the time I just know how to spell, that's all.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know what they do, how they connect to the column. So you know how beams connect to columns. And see because my dad when he was young he worked for the construction company, so he knows quite a bit about building houses. But the thing is, we have the language barrier. He doesn't know English. I don't know what they call in Vietnamese by translating from English. That's the first thing. So but then I mean when I had the challenge to do a software assignment in doing at QUT, so I have no choice. I think I have to like overcome myself, back to my country, learn that Revit like in 5 weeks. Every single day.
That's pretty good.
I come to see him every single day, and we spend like at least 5-6 hours just to learn the basics.
And you did that during your holiday time?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So I went back to Vietnam for 5 weeks. I spent like almost 4.5 weeks to him, like come to his company during a lunchtime, and then we work on that until he finished work and go home, and like every day 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, and of course this is unpaid.
Yeah. Well, at the first we my dad pay him, but then we become like he took me as his student. Yeah, so he share his experience, his knowledge, because I really respect him because he can learn from himself. Like he can do self-learning really well.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't understand English much, but he can guess what's it meaning, and he watched the tutorial on YouTube and all that. Yeah. Amazing. So that's how I learned Revit.
Yeah.
But then it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
So when I back to Australia and back to school, back to uni, it's this long process of self-learning, and the thing is you don't have the chance to practice if you're on holiday, so you have to get something to work on, like an assignment or something. And the lucky thing is he agreed to help me while I'm doing my architecture in Australia. So we do a Skype video call, and then we do a team view. So he actually jumped into my computer screen and he showed me, you have to do this and this and this.
Right.
Yeah.
So you found your mentor, which has actually brought you a long way.
Yeah. Honestly, I appreciate what he spent with me because we have a 3 hours gap in hours. Yeah. And sometimes he stay up late just to show me how to do that in drawing for my assignments. Yeah. And all the knowledge about how to build, how to render, and how to do a presentation wall, things like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's actually really cool because that allowed you to spend your holidays in a very productive way, essentially professional development that other people call it.
Yeah.
And you went out looking for it and you found this person and turned it into something really good.
Yeah.
Now it's really funny because I remember when I first came into Australia, I wasn't as old, I was in year 6, but the same language barrier was there. So coming from Sri Lanka, that translation issue to little things, and it's nothing to do with your IQ, it's nothing to do with how smart or your capabilities, your skills or weaknesses or anything like that. I remember this one maths quiz. The teacher was just reading out what the equation is, and we're supposed to do it in our minds without calculators in grade 6 and write down the numbers. So this was like a pop quiz, and I remember getting almost 0 consistently for almost every single one, to the point where the teacher actually had to ask my parents to come in and have a chat because I was not doing well and they were thinking that I should go down to a remedial class because the equations were things like this. And I remember this one very, very specifically because it was things like 43 divided by 7. What's the remainder? Now, I have never heard of the word remainder until in that class, because obviously doing that maths in my head, half a second, not even that, it's very simple. Even back then, I remember the maths in Sri Lanka was very advanced, so it wasn't a problem doing the maths. But then this word remainder, I had no clue what a remainder was. So I'm guessing, right? So I would go 50. And the teacher's looking at my answers going, okay, this guy is special. he's struggling, he can't understand what's going on. They're thinking it's something else because the teacher actually never spent time properly understanding what's happening. But anyway, then when we came to Brisbane, they gave an IQ test with an actual translation part involved in it, and it was no problem. They'd actually then put me 1 year ahead because they thought the knowledge is there, the skill is there. It's literally just a language issue. So it took me a good year and a half because I had English knowledge back in Sri Lanka to a point. But if I didn't have that, I'd be in your same boat. So this actually brings me to a very weird question. And I'm going a little bit off script here, but do you think in your mind in Vietnamese or in English?
No, that's a good question. I think that's a very common experience to anyone that learned English as a second language. So because when I learned, we did learn English in high school, but the thing, we don't have the environment to practice, to talk every day.
Yeah.
But here, when I first came to Australia, I just like surrounding me with just all Vietnamese, and I work for the butchery shop, and I start talking in English. And back in the time where...
So how old were you when this was going on?
18.
Okay, so this was in first year or before that?
Before that. Yeah,
right.
The very beginning.
Yeah.
Yep. So back then when I use English, I have to translate. Like I spend like less than 1 second, 1-2 seconds.
Yeah.
Translate from Vietnamese to English. So
and
I
then
can talk.
speak.
Because I'm afraid that I didn't speak correctly in grammar, in this correct accents, and up and down voice, things like that.
Yeah.
But then I realized the more I talk, the more it's come inside, so it's become your native
it's muscle
reaction.
memory.
Yeah, things like that. So now I think sometimes it's easier if I think in English, like, because that's how I speak. So it's has to be how I think, so I can speak to what I think, rather than I have to translate back into Vietnamese and then translate back into English so I can speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think I just pick up from that while I talk.
Yeah.
So I learned from the past years. So yeah.
Did you actively go and hang out with English speaking students, or did that make a difference, or was that by chance?
No.
Okay.
Not really. But I do have, but not that.
Not consciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of my friends are just Vietnamese.
Naturally, that would happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have some friends in uni, but because the thing is, I think that's another story about a different in culture, that we can talk in class but not outside.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just me because I was busy with working, because like an international, I have to take care of my expenses, like home renting and all that. So I have to work. So outside class, working. So no hanging out.
Well, this was my actual next question going to be, because you don't have your family here. Outside of uni is one thing that most people see as an international student, but then there's a whole bunch of other barriers behind it. So like you said, you had to work, were you living on your own?
Yep.
Okay, so you were living on your own, you had to manage a whole household, you had to find rent. How did you manage that, and what was your work-life balance like? If there was any.
No, it's not at all. It's not balanced, because I think when you get to the situation where you have to keep going, and then you have no choice, and you have to work, you have to manage yourself to survive here.
Yep.
Well, it's actually it's good experience, because by working you get a chance to meet a lot of people. Like I was lucky when I the first thing I do here in Australia was in the butchery shop, and I met my now I call my adopt mother. She's Vietnamese, but she's been living here for like 40 years plus.
Right.
So there was a 2-year time I live in their house, so I can pick up their language. That was my lucky, because she taught me how to speak correctly, how to pronounce correctly, and she taught me like even like in daily stuff like driving. She taught me how to drive, and
That's amazing.
yeah, all that. Even if now I'm still learning a lot from her. So yeah, that was from working. So I got that relationship from working. So
So full-time studying, how many hours were you working?
as many as I can.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because you need the funding.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, it's occasionally. It's not a whole full time. So I have to manage my own time management because apart from study, so saying like in the early semester where we have not many assignment, I can work more.
You work more, yeah.
Yeah, when it's come to the end where we like near the deadline, I have to cut off.
Yeah.
So it's your management skill,
Yeah.
which is really important.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work because I'm kind of like a last minute person.
Okay.
Because I found that where my motivation is highest, and when it's highest, I got to focus, and that's how I do better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So, and I'm kind of like emotion kind of person. So when I don't want to do assignment, I just leave it aside.
Okay, fair enough.
I just leave it aside until like you got no choice, and when you just start getting your hand on it, and then you just keep going non-stop.
Yeah.
I still remember it was second years. Not a archi subject, but it's landscape. Yeah, it's still part of the study. I spent like 3 days with 6 hours sleep in total.
Wow.
So it's just like 2 hours sleep, wake up, 2 hours sleep, wake up.
So that's 100% working on studies, or is that working
On study.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So do assignments and then do a model, do drawings.
Right.
Yep. In the whole 3 days.
Yeah. And were there time periods when you were going to class during the day and then have to work at night kind of days?
Yeah. There was some time, but I try my best to avoid that because obviously it's not 100% performance.
Sleep's important.
Yeah, sleep important. But when I have no choice, I either ask to get a day off, or if I can't do anything, so I just let it happen. Yeah. That's no choice, literally.
No, I think you've come a long way, mate. Like obviously learning about those things, and as an international student, you have a lot more, what do you call, things like visa to worry about, which a local student wouldn't even think about, and qualifications with things, and then working and renting and managing your own life, and the language barrier and the cultural differences and finding new people and everything, right? So I think it's really incredible. And having seen you in the start of uni and then for that very last subject, I see a massive improvement, and that's just a testament of where your life can go. So keep going on that. So that's pretty cool. And I've noticed that there's a lot of self-awareness that's developed from having gone through the journey that you have as an international student. So I'm just a bit mindful of time. So I wanted to ask you, as an international student, do you have any advice for other international students traveling along this same path or just starting out, learning from your challenges or maybe even mistakes or things that you would redo or double down on? Do you have any advice for them?
For those who have the inspiration, like like I'll say for those who want to do archi, obviously you gotta prepare yourself in high school. You have to learn software. You have to learn at least Photoshop. I didn't have when I first start, so that's the first experience. Prepare yourself. But if you just want to do architecture like myself, like my situation, might as well just like keep going non-stop. Don't give up in the middle. So you never know what you can do until you make it happen. That's what I say. Because if I drop in second year because of that Revit, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, of course.
I wouldn't like. I think I might just finish my last year in whatever business. I don't know. Yeah. But honestly, I never regret of anything because that's what you chose to do.
Yeah.
That's
see you through to the end.
Yeah, I never regret. I chose to follow archi because even if that at the very beginning that was really struggle, I almost depressed because I couldn't do anything. I got nothing in my hand, no skill, no experience, no knowledge.
Yeah.
But at least I'm still happy because I didn't drop in second year. So if I did drop in second year, I would regret for not completing my archi study. Yep.
And that's beautiful, mate, because I think no one can now take that away from you. You've put in the hard yards, you've come out the other side, and I think it's only upwards from here. So that's great work. And I think one of the other unique factors is you went and found key people like your adopt mother, the mentor back in home, anyone else who's helped you along the way that's taught you different skills. You've gone searching for it. So that is, I think, a big takeaway, surrounding yourself with the right people. And again, from an international student point of view, do you have any advice for universities and schools who teach international kids on how to make their experience, especially here in Australia, we're a multicultural country and a society, so it's one of the biggest challenges that we have is making sure all the cultures feel like they're part of it, one nation and so on. But in an international student's point of view, they're coming from another country brand new. So when that happens, there's those challenges that you've gone through. Do you have any advice for unis and schools to make sure that that's easier?
I would say, like I said before, it's all about communication. So instead of taking like a whole class with like 30 people, maybe just like make a less number of people so you can spend more time with them.
Yeah.
Because what my experience in the design class is the chance to talk with my tutor to get feedback.
Yeah.
To get the feedback, the idea of what I've been doing, what I've been designing, and the time I spend with them is the most important thing, because everyone trying to get their hand to talk with the tutor, and the longest as possible. Yeah. So I would say like spend more time to talk to understand that kind of student, so to know who they are, to know what their ability. So the ability can come from like a software skill, a drafting skill, and so on. And everyone just different, so you can assume that
one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
Mate, that's valuable advice, and thank you so much for giving up your time. And that's it for today, everyone. But before we leave, I do want to give a shout out to AG_13 for your 5-star review. AG_13 said, thought-provoking design discussions. Roshan's inspiring design explores many concepts of learning, thinking, and communicating in engaging ways. It's great to hear a wide range of topics relating to both the design industry and design education from a diverse range of guests. If you love design thinking or you have just started to explore new ways of problem solving, this is the podcast for you. AG_13, thank you so much for sharing your love. I really appreciate it. Everyone else, if you would like to hear your review being read across to listeners from over 14 different countries, jump online to Apple Podcasts and share your thoughts. I will make sure to personally read each review at the end of every episode. One last thing, jump onto roshansenanayake.com/podcast and click on Victor's face for the show notes from today's episode. And feel free to reach out to him and learn from his journey as well. Victor, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Roshan.
Till next time.